Welcome to the latest Motley Fool scoreboard. I'm on in Chocobaloo, and we've got longtime fools Rick Menares and Jason Hall giving a 1 to 10 rating to a top 200 stock in the primary Hidden Gems database. It's Brinker International, ticker symbol EAT. First, we'll rate the strength of Brinker's business, including factors like industry and competition. A 10 is invincible. A 1 is hopeless. Both of you have 7s, Rick.
Yeah, the restaurant industry can be brutal. I know this all too well. Today's hot concept can be tomorrow's cold leftovers. Thankfully for the parent company behind Chili's and Maggiano's Little Italy, it's hard to find a hotter eatery stock in the past couple of years than Brinker International. Its fundamentals are as catchy as the "I want my baby back, baby back, baby back, baby back" ribs jingle.
Barbecue sauce. So I will say anecdotally, Maggiano's is one of the choices that was offered up after we're doing a play with some kids and their families this coming Sunday. So this is a very topical one for me. But I do think that it's just basic like blocking and tackling for Brinkers that's the result here. Over the past few years, it's reacquired a ton of franchise locations, and it's also focused on the menu and some operational improvements, and it's really starting to pay off. If you look back over the past decade, profitability was eroding heading into the pandemic. Of course, it was really tough during then, but over the past few years, the combination of kind of catching up to consumer tastes and affordability, we can't ignore that, along with just getting better at like the operations, getting the menu better, the quality of the food better, has really helped. Operating margins back above 20% for the first time in almost a decade. Profit margins are approaching 8%. That's incredibly good for a restaurant, especially one that operates a lot of its restaurants versus mostly franchise models that we see. I was actually tempted to go higher, but I don't want to give management in the business too much credit for the inflation benefit. A lot of other restaurants are hurting, but it's helping Brinker because you can go sit down there at Chili's and you can have a burger and fries for cheaper than you can go at other fast food restaurants to get the same thing.
Yeah, we were talking before about Chili's. I've had an airport Chili's experience, and it was very favorable. Even a salad was good. The burgers looked great, and they tasted great, per my friend. Let's talk about management. A 10 is Warren Buffett. A 1 is Homer Simpson. Jason's got a 7. Rick, you've got an 8.
Yeah, so Kevin Hochman was named CEO in the spring of 2022 after the retirement of longtime CEO Wyman Roberts. Hochman wasn't an insider. He came over as president of KFC USA and Pizza Hut US. He hasn't been there long, and that's why I went with an 8. But his arrivals coincided with a spectacular renaissance at his flagship Chili's chain.
Yeah, I was really tempted, Rick, to join you at an 8, but I don't want to give too much credit to present management for getting a kind of a double-sided tailwind benefit. We've talked about the economics and the macro thing that I think that are helping. They deserve credit, though, for the better branding, operational improvements that are letting them feast on that strong demand while diners are hungry for what they're putting on the table. Rick, I'm not you, but I can pun with the best of them too, buddy.
Nice.
And I'll concur on the CEO, Hochman. The interview I saw or read, it was impressive, and then based that, and then you see the operational improvements and that the food actually tastes good again. It's impressive. For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes. Jason's got a 7. Rick, you've got an 8.
Yeah, so same restaurant sales is a great way to gauge concept popularity, and we've seen a lot of golden standards in food and beverage retail like Chipotle and Starbucks prove mortal and dip into negative comps recently. Brinker's defying gravity. Comps rose 8% in fiscal 2023, Hochman's first full year as CEO. Comps rose 7%. Fiscal 2024. Fiscal 2025, when many eateries stumbled, comps soared 23%. The average Brinker restaurant is generating 42% more in sales than it was 3 years ago. And this isn't just a top-line growth story. Net margin has more than doubled in those 3 years. Net income itself has more than tripled. There's some long-term debt, but it's manageable.
Yeah, Rick's right here. The financials have improved, and they're just stellar for this kind of restaurant. As I mentioned before, that trend is great. You look at the balance sheet too. Not only does it look like debt's manageable, but it's down since Hochman took over in 2022. Debt's down about 20%. Cash is up. It's not up a lot. I mean, percentage-wise, it's a lot, but the bottom line is that just so many restaurants, they have really small cash cushions, and they rely heavily on their vendors to basically kind of front working capital. That could put the company in a liquidity crunch if we do hit tough economic times and all those people that are coming to the restaurant now decide to stay home for dinner.
Jason, let's move on to valuation. How well will Brinker stock go over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10's a sure thing, 1's a lottery ticket.
Over 5 years, I think it's probably pretty safe. I went with a 7 there. I'm just less convinced in the growth story, the renaissance here. And my range is 5 to 10%. And I hate to say it, but I think it's probably the lower end. The valuation looks good. Like I said, I'm not convinced that it's a sustained growth story. Don't want to call it a value trap, but maybe it's more of a cheap for a reason. It's not a bad reason, but the reason is that there's not a lot of evidence to guarantee that we're going to see like the double-digit growth of earnings continue over the long term.
Yeah, I went with a heartier 15% plus and a safety score of 7. You can buy Brinker for less than 14 times the midpoint of its earnings guidance for this fiscal year, and less than 12 times what Wall Street analysts think is going to happen next year, the following fiscal year. Despite posting a 19% jump in comps in its latest quarter, the fiscal first quarter of 2026, growth is expected to moderate. It's still a bargain. As for safety, I know diners can be fickle, but Chili's has been around since 1975. So after 50 years later, it's going stronger than ever. I'm at a 7.
Thank you to both Rick and to Jason. They've given Brinker a solid overall score of 7.3 out of 10. For toppets, Jason prefers Tim Byers' Lovestock Toast, and Rick prefers Kava. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is New Holdings. Till then, Fool on.